And now the second lesson is a Ramesha actually. Is a Ramesha, a famous Ramesha with a little bit of a postscript from his children. The famous Ramesha from this week's parsha, connected to Kedoshim Tiyu. Kedoshim, we know the famous Ramban about Novel Bershas HaTorah, the Ramban that says you could have everything kosher, you could have everything mutter, and yet what? And yet it's called Nevala. Why is it called Nevala? Like the Ramban, many ways of understanding the Ramban. And unfortunately, we live the words of this Ramban kibshutoi. Mamish, the Ramban teaching us how everything is with the hechsher and everything is kosher and everything is good and everything is glatt. But is that how to explain the Ramban is hard. But Moshe Feinstein famously says in the famous tshuva about smoking weed, very controversial topic, very hot topic these days. So Dr. Moshe Feinstein, listen, we have our own local dispensary over here. We got to be careful. Says Ramosha, says Ramosha, Ramosha comes along, me goggle from Ramosha. Ramosha says, and yeah, and again, I guess we'll make the disclaimer. Yes, there's something called medicine. It's people that need things for medicine, and we're not chas v'shal. Yes, and every drug has its usage. We're not talking about any of that. In case I needed to make that disclaimer, I did. Thank you. Dr. Moshe Feinstein in a very small tshuva, mamish, a teeny little tshuva. Everyone has probably seen it at one point in their teenage years. It's one of those, playing cards that get passed around. Says Ramosha, you know why it's also? And he quotes because you're Ben Seir Umayr. That's what he says. You're Ben Seir Umayr. And everyone wonders, Ramosha Ben Seir Umayr, what's going on? So his children, I heard this from Rav David, and someone recently told this to me, B'Shem Rav Ruvain as well. Say, you know what Ramosha means? It's really this week's parsha of Kedusha. What's Kedusha? Boundaries. That if you live life without boundaries, you're a Ben Sarah Mayra, you're Chayav Misa. It's a scary thing to think about. But that's what Kedusha is. It's boundaries. What's Kedusha to you? What's the Ramban telling us? Everything's kosher, everything's perfect. Why shouldn't I have it? I can afford it. What's the problem? I'm not one of those guys that's spending on borrowed money. I actually can afford it. What's the problem? Everything's good, and it's this, and it's this. What's the problem? It's true. It's because you have no boundaries in life. And Ramesh is teaching us that when one goes into a level, he's talking about weed. I heard from Rav David, he applied this to being an alcoholic. He said the same thing. He said if someone just gets drunk for the sake of getting drunk, he says the same thing. What are they doing? They don't have boundaries. They're just going pure, unbridled taiva, pure, unbridled pleasure. That is what the Ramban is calling a novel Bershas HaTorah. That is what the Torah calls a Ben Seir Meir. Now, I understand that what I'm saying is not popular because, come on, Rabbi, we have a lot of bigger things to worry about. Why don't you worry about the Averas before you worry about the things that are quote unquote mutter? Well, because the answer is this is Yisodi. This is foundational. There's a foundational problem that we all have because we all grew up in the world that this is the world that we live in, which is okay. So now we have to just address the challenge. And the challenge is that we need to have limits in life. And the truth is, one of the beautiful things about Baruch Hashem having children.
Isn't this precious and still
This is Mesilas Yesharim. Yes, yes.
Musser?
Mhm.
But
100%. 100%. One of the beautiful things about having children, and one who actually tries to be in tune with chinuch and tries to give over to their children, because what else does one want in this world than to have good kinder? One of the beautiful things is that with our children, we're all setting limits, everyone in their own way. Whether you're the permissive parent, whether you're whatever, everyone has their point that they find atkan. Some people, maybe that line is a little bit too high, 2 o'clock in the morning, and the 6-year-old is sitting there pounding gushers, and oh no, we can't tell our kid no, and okay, well, everyone their line. We're not getting involved, but everyone, I think, has a point in which they realize there needs to be a line. There needs to be a line. So then we have to look ourselves in the mirror. We have to say, I don't get it. We believe in this. I'll bring you a proof you believe in it because you're giving it over to your kids. So why in our own life do we not have limits? Why in our own life? No. So the answer is it's very simple because it's difficult. Just like it's difficult for the kid when you set the limit and the kid screams and cries because they're a child. We have the same issue. We might not scream and cry. We just do something much worse than scream and cry. We just destroy the limit and do whatever we want. And it's very difficult. It is. But if we don't grab a hold of our life we don't want to know what the end will be. And this is, of course, goes into why many people have money issues because they just don't have limits. They just don't have limits. And this is why, like, the most basic things people are sharing, like Chedushim, like, oh, don't swipe on a credit card like crazy. Yeah, well, Shalom Aleichem. If you don't have the money, don't spend it. Oh, well, you don't know about it. And it's a credit card, it's a transfer to get. And I'm not belittling all the tips. And they're good and they're real and use them. And they're saving people's lives 100%. And it's true. And it's enticing. Amazon split the payments in three, no credit. Oh, so now it's not $90, it's only $30. I have $30. Chacham, you're gonna have to spend the next $30 next month. And then, yeah, but you're not thinking about it's true, it's all gimmicks, it's all chaps that gets us 100%. And yeah, so yeah, we have to learn how to take control of it. But there's a foundational reason we have these issues. It's not just in money, it's not just in taiva, it's not just in shmir seinayim, it's not just in lack of Torah, it's in everything. It's called we have a problem setting limits. And this is the reason why some suggest something called a tainus haravid. And this is something that in a lot of people are into it, but it's an idea. It's an idea. Let's not get turned off with the example I'm about to give. The Ravid says as follows. He says, I'm going to teach you how to create a fast. Fast sounds geschmack, right? We all fast. He says, when you're having food and you get to the last bite, leave it over. Well, why? It's there. What about, yeah, Baltashlis, all of a sudden we're big Baltashlis people. The fact that we threw out 42 cows, that was a, but that piece of me. Zakta Ravid, you know why? Because it's so difficult. You sit there, you get shemaka steak, and you go, I need the last bite. One more bite, one more. Says the Ravid. You push that piece aside, I'm done. He says, Ravid is a Rishon. He says, as the same koyach and shamayim, like you fasted. Fast is a real thing. So firstly, you see how difficult it is to abstain. That's you see from the Ravid number one. But number two, it's a tool to realize that I could grab control of my life. I could realize that I could say no. And there's a million ways to do this. It's not just if some people it's food, other people it's certain things. Last 5 minutes I'm not doing. 5 minutes later, you could find ways, and everyone can find their own ways in their life how to grab a hold. But the point is that when you make a small little hagbala, a small little fence, you train yourself that you have limits. It's weightlifting, it's exercise. And then you know what happens? And then when you get the big challenge in life, and then when you actually really have to set a limit because it's really difficult and it's really enticing and it's right there in front of you, and say, how could I say no when it's right? I'm used to it. I control my life. And I'll end. So beautiful story. I wish I remember which gadol it was. He was sitting and learning with his chavrusa. He didn't have a phone. It was a house phone sitting next to him, sitting and learning, and the phone rings. Phone rings, and he's learning. He says, Rebbe, you're not going to pick up the phone? He says, just because it rings, I have to pick up the phone? I'll determine when I'm going to be on the phone. Right now, I'm learning. Now, that's a high level. Like the phone's dinging, the phone's... No, I'm learning. But that's someone in control of his life 100%. I'm doing what I'm doing now. The muscle with the rotary phone ringing is, of course, a muscle. But obviously, everyone in their own lives, there was a time I'm putting the phone down. Now I'm doing whatever I'm doing. Now I'm talking to my wife. Now I'm talking to my kids. The itch to grab it back and, oh, the watch. Okay, you gotta also take off the watch. You gotta push it, degarb to, and turn off the TV and turn off the, 42 things are yelling at you. Whatever it is. But grab control of our lives. Set limits. The smallest, teeniest little limit. That teeny little limit, that one little fence, that's the difference, says Moshe Feinstein, between a novel Bershus HaTorah, says the Ramban, between a Ben Seir and Meir, says Reuven Feinstein, Chayiv Misa. Chayiv Misa. Someone just told me today, he knows someone who personally asked Reuven, and he said, Chayiv Misa. Why? Because you have no limits. You have no limits. You're Ben Seir and Meir. And unfortunately, well, this will end. Unfortunately, why do so many bad stories happen to people? Because they don't have limits. And we're not pointing fingers. And Yitzhahara is horrible. And it's very, very challenging. And we're not nothing of the above. But we look internally to ourselves. And we look in the mirror and we say to ourselves, we're learning the Parsha of Kedoshim, learning the Parsha of everything is mutter and glad kosher. Correct. I don't want to be a novel. I don't want to be a dead carcass. I want to be an upstanding individual. I want to be a yid. We have to start creating the smallest of limits. And Emir Tashem will be happy, happy people.